Well, good morning to all of you joining us across different time zones this morning. We've got participants from all over the country. I just wanted to welcome you in and let you know that we are going to give ourselves until about 2 to 3 minutes after the hour before we get started. We've got close to 160 charter leaders from around the country joining us. This will be our most popular webinar of 2022, so we're really happy to have you here. So we're going to give everyone just a few minutes to hop into the webinar. And if you're joining us live on YouTube, welcome to the session. We will get started in just a few minutes. Well, good morning. Looks like attendees are starting to flow in this morning. It is the top of the hour. I just want to let you all know we're waiting a few minutes because we've got over 160 charter leaders joining us from around the country this morning. And so we're going to give everyone about 2 to 3 minutes to hop on to the Zoom or hop on with us live on YouTube, just to give you a few moments to get into the session. While we're waiting for everyone to join us, and there's quite a few, as I mentioned, of you this morning, so we're going to be expecting close to 160 of you. I'm going to use the sort of dead air, if you will, to bring you up to speed on a couple of things that are happening here at Charter School Capital. I know we have some registrants this morning and school leaders from Georgia joining us. We will be at the Georgia Charter School Conference this Friday and Saturday. That's the Georgia Charter Schools Association Conference. We're really pleased to be sponsors, and we'll be in the sponsor hall on Friday. The following week, we head to the great state of Colorado for the 2022 Colorado League of Charter Schools annual conference on March 1st and 2nd. And then 3 weeks from next Monday, I believe, we are heading to Long Beach for the first in-person California Charter Schools Association annual conference. That'll be March 15th through the 17th, a conference we have been going to for many, many years. We're excited to be heading back to California. Now, the exciting thing about being at conferences is we have these really cool socks that I'm sure a few of the registrants, a few of the participants this morning, and anyone that has met us at a conference is familiar with. These are our We Love Charter Schools socks. If you aren't familiar with those socks and you are going to one of these upcoming conferences or any of our conferences over the course of the next year, come by our booth. We have a brand new edition of these socks this year. I wish I had a pair, but I'll be getting them when I'm in California. We've got these lovely like green, orange, yellow striped socks that have We Love Charter Schools on them. So look out for those socks and come by and say hello to our teams if you're going to be in Georgia, in Colorado, or in California over the next couple of weeks at those conferences. Also, just want to let you know, we are hearing that there are ESSER delays in funding happening. We're planning a webinar probably in late March or early April around that topic, so look out for that invite as well. And for those of you joining us from YouTube, just want to let you know, welcome to the session. From a logistical perspective, we're just giving everyone just a few more seconds or about a minute or so before we get started. And for those of you joining us here, just want to let you know that we are going to be providing a recording of the webinar as well as the presentation slides that we will get both out to you by the end of this afternoon. So it's about 3 minutes after the hour, and there are quite a few of us, quite a few of you already here. I just want to welcome you and say good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Michael Barber, and I'll be the host and content producer for our webinar series here at Charter School Capital. Today, I'm joined by these gorgeous human beings that you see in front of you, Janet Johnson, Liz Oversom, and Ashley McQuarrie. And today we're going to talk about all things enrollment marketing. Over the course of the next hour, we're going to introduce ourselves, or I should say, I'm going to introduce these fine human beings to you. And then Ashley, Liz, and Janet are going to discuss best practices and tactics for retaining current students, growing your schools, as well as how to help build your brand in the communities that you serve. And while we are doing that, I'm just going to get today's session slides up for you and ask my fellow hosts, if they can see these slides, if you can all give me a thumbs up. But yes, we're seeing the slides and everything looks okay on your end. Wonderful. Okie dokie. Let's keep rolling then. We would encourage you to ask any questions that you've got over the next hour or so. Please go ahead and use that Q&A window in your Zoom menu bar. We'll do our best to get to those questions as we go through the next hour, and then we may keep some until the end to address all together. But go ahead and pop those questions into the Q&A. And again, like I said, we'll do our best to get to those questions as we progress over the next hour. Also, as I mentioned before, we are recording this webinar, and you will get that recording and slides later this afternoon. Now, I'll be your host as mentioned, but before I introduce the rest of our team, allow me just a few moments to introduce Charter School Capital. Our mission is to help others get where they're going. We do that by accessing both public and private funds so that charter leaders have a consistent stream of money and other resources to help their charter schools become forever schools. For almost 15 years, we've done that through facilities financing, including our no-cost bond option, enrollment marketing, which you're going to hear all about today, and working capital, which ensures you have the day-to-day funds to operate your school. We've also developed an absolutely amazing library of resources like this webinar. This is our 72nd webinar over the last 15 years, which is just incredible to say. You'll find this webinar later today, as well as all of those resources on our website at charterschoolcapital.com. You'll also find really in-depth ebooks and one-pagers that are chock full of information to help school leaders run their charter schools. Now, I'm ever so pleased to introduce the rest of our panel here today and my colleagues, Ashley McQuarrie, Liz Overson, and Janet Johnson. Ashley is the director of our enrollment marketing team. She worked for a year in the classroom before landing in digital marketing. And while teaching wasn't for her, she has a passion for this space. Before joining us, Ashley worked across social media and content marketing teams within education and technology brands. Ashley, how are you doing today? Doing well. She's going to give us the thumbs up and get unmuted.
Well, thanks.
Good. Liz Overson is a content strategist who works across our enrollment marketing clients. Liz brings 20 plus years of corporate marketing experience in technology, consulting, financial services, and education. And when she isn't doing those marketing services, you will find her shuttling her twin boys to all things sports and music and school and everything in between, or taking her dog for hikes. She has an awesome, beautiful dog that is just totally rambunctious, so she's got to get it out there for long hikes all the time. Liz, how are you doing this morning?
Great, Michael. Thank you.
Thanks for being here. Last but certainly not least, my longtime friend and colleague, Janet Johnson, is our Chief Growth Officer here at Charter School Capital. Before joining our team, she ran global marketing teams for education technology, cloud automation, and enterprise software companies. And outside of making sure that our lovely marketing team here at CSC does incredible work, you will find Janet doing her morning strolls along the coast of Oregon, or using her free time, I put that in air quotes, teaching as an adjunct professor at Portland State University. And so without further ado, I am going to turn the virtual floor over to you three.
Michael, thank you for not saying how long I've been in marketing. I'm very grateful for that. Thank you.
Of course.
Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you here and excited to talk a little bit about a challenge for schools, especially in the last couple of years, that I really don't need to explain anything about to you, except that we have been out there with you and working really hard to get kids in the classrooms for our schools. You can go to the agenda, Michael, or the next slide, if you would, please. We are in our 5th season of doing enrollment marketing for a select number of schools. We actually have worked with more than 50 schools, Ashley, Liz, and I together. And we take a real digital approach. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. Ashley's going to give you some real insights into what can happen there. Liz is going to take us through some case studies for clients that we've had over the years, both good and bad, so that you can we can help you figure out what's going on and what can go well and what can go not well, especially if we were to work together with you. And then we'll take your questions and comments along the way. I know Michael is not shy about letting us know whether you have questions, that kind of thing. So Michael, if you can just pop to the next spot. Thank you. Our why, and Michael alluded to this, we started our enrollment marketing program to actually help leaders get where they want to go by growing their schools, or to stabilize their schools, and to really help the communities that these charter schools live in better understand what it is about the schools that make them so special. So we're really around, and we've developed this program over the years to actually help build a more vibrant community, make sure that school leaders are actually getting where they want to be, and then creating a notion of a forever school in these communities. Charter schools haven't been around for that long, but boy, howdy, do we have a future together. And we do these things by telling really consistent stories. Liz's team does beautiful writing for the schools. We do build community awareness because Ashley and her team have figured out how to get social media content out, get everybody in the community able to actually look inside the schools without having to walk inside a school, which is really helpful for parents who, especially in the last couple of years, haven't had the freedom to do that. We really understand how important it is to make sure word of mouth in the community is wonderful about your school. So we do whatever we can to enhance that. And then we do certainly with our advertising, our marketing programs, et cetera, improve the visibility of the school when people are actually searching for schools for their loved ones. Michael, if you want to go to the next one. So we do this through awareness and engagement for the school brand itself, which is something that we help to create. If you don't have a vibrant school brand in the community, we take a very digital approach, which is really important, especially for the younger kiddos and the younger parents out there. They start everything in the world with a search on a mobile phone. So we want to make sure that our schools show up really well on a mobile phone. And I would suggest that the first thing y'all do when you are finished with this is take a look at your school website from a mobile phone and see how it looks. If it doesn't look so great and you can't see your phone number or an enroll now button right at the very top, you might want to look at what you can do to get that there, or talk to us. And then in terms of building community or maintaining community, what we recognize is enrollment marketing is so critically important from both what you can pitch out from the online world into the loving arms of somebody in the school, in the offline world, in the real community, so that people can find you online and then meet you in person, or at least online in a Zoom environment for as long as we're required to do those kinds of things. So building community is really, really critical, and we cannot do that without you. So that's a very, very critical part of what we do together, and what you should hopefully be having people do on your own. Michael, I see you've popped up. Do you have questions, or are you just kind of hanging out with us so we can see your beautiful face? There you go. Thanks. Go to the next slide, please. These are a couple of quick examples of what we do, a little bit of our work in the past, and we're going to really talk through how we do the kinds of things that we do for our schools to build brand, to create a digital presence for your school, and to build community and support your on-the-ground efforts. Next slide, please. Okay. One of the things that's really important, and I hope that you don't mind me going into a bit of a digital marketing overview for you, and I apologize, I seem to be yapping a lot, but I'll turn it over to my partners in crime here in a moment. We take a funnel approach. We're marketers after all, and the marketing funnel starts at the very top with awareness. How do people find out about you when they're on their phones and looking for a school for their loved one? So we do things like create story arcs. Liz's team creates a series of 3 stories that we tell consistently throughout the time of enrollment, which should start in January and go all the way through the start of school and beyond, if you can sustain your efforts. So consistent stories are really, really important to ground our efforts in supporting your school and creating a brand for the community. The school itself should be doing social media posts so that we can augment them with enrollment marketing posts, those kinds of things. Creating profiles of your teachers, of your staff. People want to understand the people behind the school. So you'll find oftentimes your About Us section is a really important place, but what we do when we support a school is to write stories about the staff, the teachers, the leaders of the school, even some of the community members that support the school. That's really, really important, and the students themselves. So this awareness area is really mostly around telling stories and augmenting your work in the social world. Then we get into engagement where people actually start to want to know more. They're aware of your school. They want to start to think about, wow, what would it be like for my child to go there? And so now they're looking at things like learning more about the school, printed materials, those kinds of things. And we help to create those, leveraging those stories that we've been working on with you. And at the same time, you are beginning to start with community outreach, community events, open houses, meet the principals, those kinds of things. And then our work as a partner to our schools that we've serviced, we actually start into the conversion area where we'll push people to events and encourage people to go and meet the folks on the ground at the schools that their child would be attending. And you'll see here at the bottom, the school leaders, as we get into that conversion place or the retention place, the school really activates there. And because you do what you do naturally, which is take really great care of the kids, teach them well, and support your community as you grow together into the future. So we really like to have this funnel pretty well outlined. And for you who would be working on your own to do this, this is a nice roadmap for you to take as you begin your enrollment marketing efforts. We understand it's not easy to do everything. We actually created these services so that we can take care of those awareness and engagement sides of things for you if you choose. But should you have a great volunteer community, et cetera, get them activated and get them started and have them help you through this process because it will be worth it in the long run.
With hey, Janet,
Michael?
Can I ask some questions? These aren't coming from the audience live right here, but we had questions in our last session during our audits webinar that I think are really important to address. And I know we have some attendees from that session here. Sure. First question is this. What are some watch outs or common challenges that you see schools face? I know you just mentioned not having a great mobile website. I think we talked a little bit during the audit session about, parents who have control over Facebook or social media pages. What are some of those common things that school leaders need to know that could fall into any one of these steps in this funnel?
Thank you, Michael. And yes, you just nailed two of the big ones. The biggest challenge we often have, and Ashley, you've painfully lived this for so many schools, is somebody started your Facebook page 5-10 years ago. They've left the school and you don't know who owns it anymore. So therefore no one owns it. And that's a problem because a lot of, especially older adults, grandparents and others rely on Facebook a lot to search out the reputation of a school. So we spend a lot of time, and you should spend the time you need to do to get your social media under your school's control. And back in the day, you had to start it as a person, but now there are what we call business accounts that will allow you to get control of your Facebook without having to have it connected to any one person. It should belong to the school. So that's critical. And truly making sure that your website is mobile optimized and secure, because otherwise Google won't serve your site up for what we call discovery searches, which are searches for best school near me, best middle school in 97209. Those kinds of searches, you should be showing up if you're doing your digital marketing correctly. But if your site is not secure, and I'll tell you, once you get done taking a look at your website on your mobile phone, take a look at the upper corner in your URL via your school's name. If there's not a little lock that is connected up there, then your site is not secure. It'll actually say not secure, and Google will suppress your site from coming up in search because it doesn't trust the fact that that there isn't something going on there. Ashley, you're our technologist. Did I get those things right?
Yep, exactly, Janet.
Okay, good. Well, I've learned a lot from you over the years. Does that answer your question, Michael?
Yes, it does. Great answer to that question. And my second question that we've had in the audits webinar that's related to this topic is just the importance of retention and the value of retention activities because of the cost of awareness work. Can you talk about the importance that schools really need to replace, not only on just, in growing their schools and driving that awareness, but also how they go about retaining current students?
Wow. And Liz, I would like you to pipe in on this one as a mom, but I don't think there's anything more important once we get the kids in school than to have completely regular communications with your parents. Liz has often sent some really nice example content to schools to leverage with regular communications. Sending notes home with the kids, those kinds of things, so that parents actually know that their children are being loved in school, as you do. It's really critical. Liz, would you add anything there?
I think that's absolutely spot on, Janet. The more communications you can have and the more regular communications you can have with your current families and community, the better. Absolutely. Yeah. Retention is key right now, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've seen over time, gosh, it's just been really hard for families to keep their kids in school for one reason or another. And so giving them a great school experience and actually giving the parents, having them have opportunities to see inside the school again via social media, via word of mouth, via being able to just come in and talk to staff, teachers, and the school leaders. Charter schools do this way better than other schools. And so I'm probably not telling you anything you need to know, but I think it's sometimes a good reminder that keep emailing parents when you have activities that they might be wanting to come in and take a look at for their child, those kinds of things. Is that helpful, Michael?
Absolutely helpful. And I think the other thing you speak to is sort of how do you get that word of mouth generating around parents and students who may be looking for an education alternative, right? We know from all the marketing data that we look at as a team, right, that the most powerful tactic we can be driving is word of mouth. And so these activities that schools are doing, you never know if you've got a parent that's like a mini influencer in the community or can help amplify and distribute the good work you're doing at schools. So getting that content out on a regular basis, getting those stories onto social or in email campaigns is just so important for schools.
Liz, you have a story to tell of one of our schools last year where, do you remember this one? You know what I'm going to say. Why don't you tell this story? Because it's a good one.
Is it the La Tierra story?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. We had a blog post. It was a profile of a third grade teacher. And a mom saw it and read it. And she happened to have a fifth grader, triplet third graders, and a kindergartner. Brought all 5 kids to the school to meet the third grade teacher because they were so interested in him from this blog post and profile of who he is and the amazing things he does in his classroom. And sure enough, she enrolled all 5 students, including the 3 triplets from one blog. It was amazing.
Yes. And that's the kind of power that you have of not only word of mouth, but actually being able to kind of see inside, to have these staff profiles, et cetera. They're just beautiful pieces that you can create to get the community to be aware and share. So thanks, Liz. That's great.
Hey, Ashley, I've got a question for you that's coming from one of our attendees. What are the best practices in the management of social media if you have multiple campus locations? Is it better to have it controlled by a central/district level location or give power to the campuses themselves?
That's a great question. We see schools do both successfully. We have schools who do make use of Facebook's location feature where you have one central page and then you can have location pages that are sort of owned by the main page. We also have schools who have a page for the organization and then individual pages that are managed separately by each of the schools. And I would say it really depends on the team that you have and the community at your school. It's probably if your school is, if your organization, if they're just like 3 doors to the same school, then it makes a lot of sense. It's probably easier to have one central page and just get content from the campuses to share there. If the schools are all really different, if they have sort of different focuses and serve different populations, and if you have the team on the ground at those campuses with the bandwidth to manage a page consistently, then it may make more sense to have separate pages that are managed by the campuses. But I would encourage you to make sure that everybody at the campuses has the same training and is on the same page about what kind of content you're sharing. And so you do want to have some oversight and consistency so that you're representing, your school brand in the same way across those. But definitely schools manage those pages successfully in different ways. So it just depends.
Awesome. We have another question too that I think is important for where we're at in the presentation or the slides, I should say, from Marielle. I think if I'm pronouncing that right. I do apologize if I'm not. Our experience is email is ineffective. Students and parents are often overwhelmed with too many emails. What alternatives do you recommend for schools to potentially explore?
That's a good one. Liz, do you have any recommendations while I try and think myself a little bit?
I think the community piece comes in here again, using other social media outlets, newsletters, other ways to let people know what's going on with school that doesn't feel like just another email message coming in your inbox, and bringing those messages to life. So photos, which you can do on newsletters and you can do in social media posts and in Facebook, et cetera. So I think sometimes it's simply just trying to find a different avenue to communicate the same information, making it fun.
Yeah, for some of our schools, we've actually done videos. Had the school leaders on videos to talk about what's going on inside the school, that kind of thing. And people don't really expect anymore, especially after the last 2 years of Zoom meetings with, kids and dogs and partners in the background. It doesn't have to be highly polished. In fact, organic and authentic content is really pretty easy to make with a phone these days. I think it's just consistency and trying new things. Don't be afraid to try new things. You never know what someone is going to really enjoy. For example, I never watch videos, but I will read the transcript of a video. Call me crazy, but that's how it goes for me. And so, having that kind of capability is really handy.
I think you touched on something important, Janet, there that I want to amplify a little bit, just trying new things. So during the pandemic, I'm going to give me a minute to unpack a personal story, but I got very much into TikTok and I've sort of dipped my toe into education TikTok, if you will. And there's incredible work that schools and teachers are doing in that channel. And I think that's, sort of speaks to this question of if something's not working, there are plenty of other places where both students and parents are spending an enormous amount of time viewing content. So think of other potential, the barrier to entry to get content in front of people today is so low between having the phones in our pockets and the places to put that content, whether it's YouTube or whether it's TikTok or whether it's a text message, a variety of ways that can be a little bit more impactful for different types of audiences.
It's a great point, Michael. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
A lot of our schools, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead,
We've
Liz.
seen a lot of success with our schools have used Instagram Live too, very successfully.
Yeah, and just on that note, because this is, all of our breads and butter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok are all, TikTok in and of itself, but I want to tell you, Facebook and Instagram have both said that they are over-indexing, that they are serving video more than they are other content. So take that for what it's worth. That's Facebook telling you that video is important and that, they're going to put that sort of content more often in the news feeds of people that are on those social networks. I'll let you all get back to the slides now.
Okay, you can go to the next one, I think, if there are no other questions here. What we suggest is to get in the pool early and grab those planner parents who are right now looking for their child's school or their loved one's school in the fall. So the earlier you can jump in, the better. We actually have been planning, as our service has evolved, we've been planning to serve 60 schools this year. We've got 20 underway right now, and we expect that by April, we'll have all 60 in line. So we're pretty excited about that. You cannot start too early, and you cannot go too quickly into the market. Start profiling your teachers, your staff. Make sure that you have begin to tell the stories of their experience at your school. And then by May, if you've gotten good content created and your website is secure and everything, you're actually going to start showing up in these searches for best school near me, best high school near me, those kinds of things. And then the enrollments start in June and July and August and beyond. So the more you can sustain, our program actually lasts until the end of October. So we can sustain, because there's always going to be those parents who decide to change their schools in that very first couple of weeks of school for one reason or another. And you can be those welcoming arms if you stay out and in the open and welcome people into your school, even into September and beyond.
Janet, we have a question I think that's important to answer on this slide is, what is a healthy budget for digital marketing or enrollment marketing in general?
That's a good question. It depends on how big your community is. Frankly, for schools in the LA USD area, it's going to be very different than schools in Kelso, Washington. So I would say that you should plan on spending probably half of a budget. You've got to sustain your work for 10 months, right? From February-ish or January, hopefully, until the end of October. So, we spend in the, tens of thousands of dollars for our schools to get the word out, et cetera. So, and I'm talking multiple tens of thousands. It's not six figures, but, if you've got a 3-school consortium, you may be spending 6 figures on your schools, right? So, whatever you can shake out from your budget to put in places like Google AdWords to get those discovery searches, to put in places like your social media, those kinds of things. I mean, we're talking real money, but at the same time, and I don't mean to take these children into a unit of measure, but the more children you bring into your school, the healthier your school's budget is going to be. So what we do is we work with our schools to make sure that we have expectations set. We know how much we're going to spend on both these fine people that you're seeing here, as well as, the programs that we put into place. And we commit and bear the risk oftentimes together with the school to make sure that we are doing things to set the enrollment. So, if you've got a school in a small area and you can spend $30,000 on, getting, 10 new kids in, you're going to have, depending on how much your state payments are going to be, your enrollment is going to support the marketing efforts, especially if you can keep those kiddos around for years. I feel like I did a little dance, but it just is really dependent on where you are in the country and how expensive ads are for your area, because the ad market is oftentimes controlled by the number of people who are competing for the students, right? Ads go up as it's more, expenses go up in a more competitive area. So, we have to approach that. We take the approach that each school is different. So we're going to actually take a look at customizing the programs for each school. But I'm going to say you're going to spend at least, if you need to grow, you're going to probably have to spend in the $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 range on marketing. And unfortunately, it's a necessary expense. I say that unfortunately, I'm a marketer. This is how we make our livings, but it's important. Ashley, were you going to say something too? No? Okay. Michael, did I do okay on that? You can skip on this one. We don't need to go through this.
Yeah, I mean, I think you did great on that question, by the way. That question's a tough one because there's no right answer given the market fluctuations and the insight on the competitiveness and the amount of people that live in the markets is very important to the cost of campaigns, especially as you're thinking about pay-per-click, especially as you're thinking about any display or banner advertising, especially as you're thinking about print advertisement or direct mail. It's all based on the competitiveness of the market. And I'll also say this, just as a keen insight, you have midterm elections coming up. In competitive markets, these costs are going to get more expensive in politically hot markets, I should say, because the inventory levels are going to be so low. So it's really important for schools this year to get in early, because hopefully you can minimize the costs later on in the year by getting in early and driving enrollment as early as possible. Just as a side thought that just came to mind a moment ago.
Thank you, Michael. That is really important. These markets for pay-per-click, Google AdWords, those kinds of things are indeed, they're competitive markets. And the more people that are in there, the more you're going to pay. When you get into the June, July, August timeframe and you're running ads, and this is something Ashley and I learned when we worked years ago for K-12, your ad cost per click can be in the $25 range versus $3 or $4 right now. So the earlier you get in and the earlier you start your program, the more money you're going to save. And more importantly, the more content that is active on your website and high quality about your school, these blog posts that Liz has been talking about, that's how we drive a lot of the, awareness and engagement for our schools, really high quality content. Once you get that going and your ads are running, the cost per ad is going to go down because Google knows that your site is actually a high quality, high producing site for excellent content. And we get rewarded in that way for having to pay less for our advertising. So if you had very little content on your website already and you're paying for outside ads, you're basically sending people to a fairly empty shell, which doesn't do anyone any good. So it's a lot of work, but it is so rewarding once you see it at work and working. And in a half a second here, I swear we're going to talk to you about some case studies so that you can actually see, well, here we are, Ashley. This is this is Ashley's hard work and Liz's hard work over a two-school consortium over the last couple of years. Would you talk them through the eye chart that is my slide construction here, Ashley? This is not Ashley's fault. This is my fault.
Absolutely. So we started working with Edge in April, it was early May, actually, 2020. We started working with them. So a little bit later in that cycle, calendar cycle that you saw earlier in the presentation. And we, developed our story arcs to define, the themes that we were going to define who Edge is and outline the themes that we were going to cover with our content. We started publishing blogs. We did some other SEO work and some optimization on Edge's site and, some other efforts to help them with digitizing their enrollment form. But all in all, their website was in pretty good shape. But what we saw, on the first chart, is we increased traffic in 2020, and that's the sessions in the bottom left. We increased visits to the website by 63% over 2019. And we drove 42% more users, so individual people, to the website than they had driven in 2019. And this is, right at the start, and through the first year of the pandemic. We also started publishing social media content consistently, including what was key was social content that links back to their website. So not just photos and things like that for people to engage with on Facebook. That stuff is important, but also stuff that, content that linked back to the school website, like blogs and enrollment landing pages where people could take action. And what we saw is that in 2020, our biggest increases in traffic came from organic search. We increased organic search by 45% over 2019. And from social media, which increased 3,400% over 2019, because we started publishing on Facebook and linking back to the site and running Facebook ads. And so that was pretty key. In 2021, we already had a lot of groundwork laid. We'd already started our optimization work for SEO, and we started to see that really pay off. And we also were able to just really focus on improving our paid search media. So in 2021, that bottom chart that you see, we drove 34,000 users to the website, which was another 100% increase over 2020. And we drove 41,000 sessions, which was, again, a 76% increase over the previous year. So we increased it 62% the first year and then 76% again the second year. And we drove the traffic from paid search actually increased 61,000% over 2020. So that was our work in 2020. We increased that by 60,000%. Some other highlights, Edge is the oldest charter school in the area, but they were appearing pretty frequently on page 2 or 3 of Google for generic searches like charter schools in Tucson or credit recovery. We actually got them. They are now the #1 position on page 1 of Google for credit recovery Tucson, and that's organic. That's not even paid media. That's just the first result you see. If you search for credit recovery Tucson, that's them. And over 60, you can actually skip to the next slide, Michael. So we have also, kudos to Liz, we've published 64 blogs for Edge over 2 years, and that includes a lot of profiles of students and staff, some SEO content, which is starting to creep up this chart of their top performing pages. We typically, they're not driving traffic, and then we start to see, why choose a charter school or credit recovery in Tucson, Arizona. We start to see that SEO content creep up the charts until it's just consistently driving organic traffic to the website. You can see the third result down is our now enrolling landing page. Traffic to that increased 14,000%. We drive traffic to that primarily from paid media. It's just a quick way for people to say that they're interested in enrolling it at the school. So, I loved seeing these results because while I was really proud of the results that we had in 2020, especially amidst a difficult enrollment season, to improve upon that the way that we did in 2021, it just really shows that, the longer that we can partner with a school, the more effective we can be.
Thank you, Ashley. And one of the things that you'll see here too are actual reports out of the school's Google Analytics. One of the things we make sure that we do and that you should have access to are your own website analytics, because if you set them up correctly, you can really see how things are working for your school. And it gives you a fount of information that's really important to consider as you make decisions about what to spend money on, where, which content piece is working better for you, so that you can continue on that quest by creating similar content along the way, right, Liz? I mean, you live and die by these things too, right? Yeah. All right. Big thumbs up. All righty. Ashley, anything more here that you'd like to say?
No, not unless there are any questions.
All righty. Now we get to some nice case studies. So Liz, you're going to take over here. You've worked with these schools.
You bet. Vanguard Collegiate of Indianapolis. They are a standalone middle school serving 5th to 8th graders. We've worked with them for 2 seasons. Some of the quick things that come to mind as far as triumphs for them is we worked with them on an advertorial for USA Today, and we've done so much content over the last 2 years that Robert Marshall, who's their executive director, was able to parlay that to the South by Southwest stage for the educational track in 2020, which was virtual. So he wasn't actually physically on stage, but he was there and able to present about his amazing school. I think one of the challenges that we've helped them overcome is that they didn't necessarily have the staff to keep up with all of the momentum and energy that we were bringing their way. And they realized they needed to hire someone specifically to work with all the enrollment interest and other interest that was coming their way through the website through the school, and they hired a community outreach coordinator to handle that. So going forward, it should be a really interesting person for us to work with and continue our efforts together as we partner again. Yay. Yay. Almond Acres. They are another school we worked with for multiple years. They're K through 8. One of the great things about working with Almond Acres is they have very heavily invested parents. There are parents involved every step of the way, including at our weekly meetings, our enrollment marketing meetings. The parents are board members and they're staffers, as well as being parents. And they show up week after week to meet with us and talk about all the things that are going on in the schools and the ways we can support the schools itself. One of the challenges that Almond Acres hit was they were able to build a new school in Paso Robles, as you can see from the slide here. And in the 11th hour, the authorizer was going to deny it. And so we helped galvanize on the ground with parent support, word of mouth, got some press, PR, so that it was on the news and everybody could get out and say, no, we've got to open this beautiful new school. We need this new school. And sure enough, they were able to open their doors, and it is a beautiful new school thriving today in Paso Robles. Mm-hmm. Next slide, please, Michael. Thank you. Catalyst Academy, 2-season client also. These guys were a year 0 or a new school in 2020. So trying to open a new school at the very beginning of the pandemic. And they were going to be a K through 1 that year. We were able to support them and make that happen by getting not 1, but 2 kindergartens filled with students. They are growing a grade each year. So this last year, they were K2, this year they'll be K3, and now we're filling 4 kindergartens for them. It's been a wonderful relationship and a great partnership. It's been super fun to watch them grow and succeed in Pittsburgh. Yay, too. Buckeye Community Schools. These are dropout prevention and credit recovery high schools in Ohio. And we had the wonderful good fortune of working with them last year. They had 1 location already open and they were opening 2 new locations. We added 300 new students. And probably the biggest challenge with that was that some of the 2 new locations were in more rural areas. The model that Buckeye is with the credit recovery and dropout prevention is a different model than what is traditionally seen there. So we had to make sure we got our messaging correct about who they are and what they do, why they're so special, how they can help. And voila, we found the students and it came to be really successful together. And then Hashan. Hashan was a 1st season client with us last year. They serve Native American students in Tucson, high school, 9th through 12th grade. They bus their students an hour and a half each way from the Tono Otham and Pasayaki reservations. Make sure these kids have an opportunity to go to smaller schools, charter schools, safe schools. And we had so much success for them. We brought so many students to their doors. It was just an incredible, incredible partnership. However, they did have some staff turnover. And until that position is filled, they're not ready and able to work with us again. So we look forward and hopeful that we will see them again next year.
And Liz, while you're talking about the partnership, we do meet weekly with schools to see how things are going. We recommend that you do that with whomever you're working with. And when we partner with the school, we actually require someone to meet with us on a regular basis. That's part of a requirement that we have because it is that partnership between, what we can serve up digitally to the folks on the ground so that they can capture that interest and get those kiddos enrolled. So we recommend that you do that with whomever is working on your marketing for you, that you really meet as often as possible. The meetings don't have to be long, but you should be giving feedback, talking about what's happening next at the school, talk about how people are hearing of you, because when you have a really good relationship like that with a partner in the marketing area, that's where you get the big results. The folks Ashley was talking about at Edge, their school leaders met with us. They've met with us weekly for 2 years. And this is the kind of results you can get if you've got those feedback loops really nicely running. So, and now we've come to our question time.
We've got some Q&A, so I'm going to stop the screen share just so everyone can see everyone's big, beautiful face. So a couple of questions that have come up that would have been good in different places, but I kept them here for the final Q&A round. The first one comes from Michelle. Are there any grants or other suggestions for raising funds for marketing? Any suggestions on where charter leaders could look for potential grants or other opportunities for funding? Or this is also, I think, a great opportunity, Janet, to reemphasize how we go about leveraging our partnership with schools, how that works.
Sure. And school leaders will know this better than I, but I believe that, and I'm not 100% sure, talk to somebody else at Charter School Capital about this, but I think some of the ESSERS type funds, it may be possible for you to spend some of those on marketing efforts. I hate to say that, but I think it might be actually true, but please, check into it yourselves. I've seen grants for marketing. It takes obviously a long time to track those kinds of things down. We should be able to. We have a woman on our team who is actually quite an amazing fundraiser in part of her life. And, maybe we can ask her, Liz, whether or not she would know whether there are grants that schools can get for fundraising. I can tell you that what we do at Charter School Capital is that we actually help schools. We have three ways to pay for our services. One is you can pay us just like any other marketing firm, where you can pay a flat fee monthly for our services to work together. Or we have a pure pay for performance model where we bear all the risk and that we don't get paid unless new kiddos show up and are enrolled in your school in the fall based on spring counts and fall counts. And then we have a hybrid model in between where we share the risk with the school. They pay us a small amount to work with them. And then they pay us a per student fee if we get the kids in. It's a lower fee than if we were to do a pure pay for performance. And we've got schools that are working on all three plans with us all the way through. So Charter School Capital bears the risk, but we are in it to help the school leaders grow their schools. And so in this last couple of years, I can tell you it's been a tough road to hoe for all of us, but we're still committed to this service for our schools, because what we really want to do is get you into a place where you feel like your school is your forever home. And we have services, like Michael said, all around those kinds of things. And so enrollment marketing is a really great way for you to get started and get to know the people behind the organization, and then tap into other services like that we offer. So,
also, I would encourage you to be utilize. Nomenclature can be really interesting and important in grant writing. So. There may not be grants out there that specify, or certain funds that specify, marketing is an allowable expense, but categorizing things as community engagement or parent engagement, right? So I'm not saying anybody should actively lie directly, but bending the truth around the ability to grab funds from different places is something that is certainly allowable from a grant perspective. Another question here from Stacy. What are typical components of landing pages that your digital campaigns are directed to? Do we want to pull back a couple best practices, Ashley, Liz, or Janet, that our team has worked on with landing pages for search ads or banner ads and the like?
Go, Ashley, go. Yeah. We keep it short is like the number one thing. We try to do a couple of things. We want the form. So every landing page should tell a little bit about what action you want them to take and why the person who's looking at your landing page should take that action. And so what we do is we develop very short, actionable, really bullet points about the school. And those are pulled directly from the story arcs, which are those key differentiators about your school. So they tie in very well with the content that we're publishing elsewhere. and the messaging on the ads that people have seen that have brought them to this landing page. So everything is kind of cohesive and actionable. And then we have a very short interest form. Typically we ask, most schools have really long enrollment forms, and we found that when we drive traffic to, an enrollment page that has lots of information about lotteries and want your kid's name and birth date and all of that, we don't see good results, because most people who are landing on your landing page, they're still pretty high up that funnel, that away on that first slide. And so they may not be ready to give you all of their information, and they may even be reticent to give you their phone number. So we ask for as little information as possible: name, email. We'll ask for phone number. Those can actually, we will do either one or the other or both. It really depends on your population. We've worked with schools where they said, our parents don't have email addresses, but they have phones. And so we'll just say, we'll ask for a phone in that case. And really that's it. Sometimes we'll say something like grades interested in, or we'll give them the option to leave a message, but we keep it just super easy to fill out and not making very big asks, because we can always get that information later when we follow up, when the school staff follows up with them. And the only other thing is that in that interest form, landing pages can have other content. They can have videos or photos or things like that, but they should be further down the page for people who want to explore. We want that interest form, what we call above the fold, so as high up as possible. So you don't even need to scroll to see it. It should just be right up there, because most people are not going to read closely. They're not going to scroll very long. They're going to land and make a decision in like 10 seconds about whether they're going to, take action.
Awesome recommendations, Ashley. Thanks for those. We have another question. What's the recommended web platform? Is a service like Edlio recommended? This is a service that I know many, not only just charters, but other schools utilize. You got to pay for that tool, or something like WordPress for its flexibility. Thoughts there?
My top choice is always WordPress. And when we work with a school that wants to move from another platform, whether it's a paid education specific platform like Edlio, or another WordPress, website platform like Wix or Weebly, we almost always move to WordPress. I prefer WordPress because it's very flexible. It's much easier, and it can be a lot more cost effective to change styling elements on your website. There's a learning curve, but truly, somebody on your team, given the time and the training, could learn it. And it's also, I think, in general, more affordable to find a developer locally to you or online who can help with simple changes than it can be to get locked into a multi-year contract with a platform that, you have to pay to make any changes. And it's also just really flexible. So there are just styling limitations when you have a platform that's meant to be as easy to update as like an Edlio or an Educational Networks. But there are so many different plugins. So if you need calendars, or if you need blogs, or if you want to add video, or if you want to use a Google form instead of like a built-in form, you can put all of that into WordPress, where you may not be able to pull in all these different parts and pieces. You're stuck with just what the platform gives you when you work with another, like a very highly managed platform.
Anything to add there, Janet or Liz? Okay. I do want to respond to a question that Jordan just posted related to size of school and who our team works with. We don't care how big or small your school is or group of schools is. So we're happy to work with your school regardless of size. And Jordan, I'll make sure that someone from our team follows up directly with you. If anybody else would like someone from our team to follow up directly, please, raise a hand, type in an emoji, say hi in the chat box, and I'll make that happen for you all. We do have 3 more minutes before the top of the hour, and I believe 2 more questions I would love to address. This next one comes from Stacy. Do you have training that you do for school staff on creating content? Is that part of the services that we help with the different schools we're working with?
Liz, if you don't mind, I'm just going to say we teach as we go. And we share our best practices with our schools. Got anything to add to that, Liz?
No, I think that's exactly accurate. That's exactly how it goes.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And last question. This is the golden question. but I think we should answer it as best as we can. How much are our services?
Priceless. Just kidding. I'm sorry. Our services, again, are based on what we try to do is your state aid payment is a certain amount. Your variable costs per student on that state aid payment, once you subtract staff and rent and those kinds of things, is a smaller amount. What we try to do in a pay for performance plan is to take a part of that variable cost per student the first year they come in, and then the longer you keep them, the more they just stay as revenue for you. So what we would do is give you a proposal. If you are interested, we will give you a proposal with 3 choices generally in terms of how to pay for it, whether you want flat fee, a hybrid, or pure performance. You choose, and then we get jumping in to work with you. So
thanks for pulling back the veil a little bit there for us, Janet.
No problem.
I know we've got a few other people who have raised their hands, so I'll make sure that those direct connections happen. The last question I will reiterate and answer right now for everyone. Yes, you are getting a copy of the webinar. You will get both the recording, this recording, as well as the slides. And this webinar will be available on demand this afternoon, so you can forward it to any one of your colleagues as well. Janet, before we wrap up, I'm going to let you hop in here.
Thank you. We also have an ebook on our website in the resources area on marketing, and it gives you every single thing that we do for you that you can do for yourself if you just follow it. It's a nice workbook, and I recommend you download it and take a look at it.
And I'm going to pop that URL for the resources library into the chat, so anybody can grab that and head over. You can use the filters to select charter school marketing, and that ebook and any resources we've done on the topic will be available right there. It's 1 o'clock on my hour on the East Coast. I believe that puts it at 10 a.m. on the West Coast. So we're going to wrap up and be respectful of your time. We really appreciate all 71 of you who spend almost the whole hour with us, and look forward to following up with a few of you directly. As always, we're available at growcharters@charterschoolcapital.com if you want to email our team or reach out. We've got live chat on our website at charterschoolcapital.com. We appreciate you all being here, and thank you for all the kudos you're popping into the chat. I hope to see everyone that's in Georgia, Colorado, or California, or I should say our team hopes to see everyone that's heading to those conferences over the next few weeks. And again, we thank you for your time and look forward to seeing you at another webinar in the near future. Thanks again. Bye.